So welcome, welcome. I'll start out with the spring semester is healthy and robust. We have 1,000 more students this spring than last spring, and we have met our growth goals. We're going to hit 4% this academic year, which is good news, and we're under budget. So we're not in the red, we're in the black as far as our projections are. So that's all good, and you should know that the district is interested in doing another 3% next year. So we're going to plan ahead with that, and your VP of Academic Affairs and your Council of Instruction will be working on that. We're going to talk about our accreditation progress report or follow-up report and give you a quick overview of that. We're going to talk about student learning, student achievement, our institutional standards with regard to student achievement, our benchmarks that we need to factor in, our strategic planning, and finally we'll end up with integrated planning, which ties up the whole thing. So I'm going to turn it over to Madeline to talk about the follow-up report.
Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to go over the steering committee. I think everybody has heard of the Accreditation Steering Committee, otherwise known as ASC. And just wanted to let you know what it is that we do. Part of our responsibility on campus is to oversee the review of accreditation, of the recommendations for accreditation. So we have a committee that's broadly represented, and we look at what the recommendations are from ACCJC, and then we start to put a plan together on our campus as to how we're going to meet that. Our membership includes the college president, the co-chairs, which this round were Danny, myself, and Darlene. Our ALO, which is Michael Allen. And then we also included the self-evaluation accreditation report co-chairs from the last round, which were Pat and Angela. Joe, our vice president of student services. Kathy Brinkman, our associate dean in academic affairs. Zoila, who was representing the staff bargaining unit supervisors and management. Leslie Milkey representing the chairs. Monica Moreno, which was representing the AFT Faculty Guild. James representing the Staff Guild. Michael Griggs as our ASO designee. Sarah Master, the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness. And then Mary Lou Mendoza as a resource for the Shared Governance Oversight Committee, and Dennis Schroeder as a resource for financial aid. Throughout the summer and the fall terms, we met regularly just to review what the writing teams were doing and how we as a committee could support the campus. Beginning in July of 2013, we assigned responsibility of each of the recommendations to the division vice presidents. They established the writing teams, and the writing teams met to create action plans, oversee the progress of the recommendations, and organize the initial writing of the draft reports. The administrators, the co-chairs, ALO, and the writing teams all collaborated to monitor and adhere to the timelines that were set. And then they updated them as necessary and also helped collect the data and evidence. The progress was presented regularly, either by the writing team leads or by the division vice presidents at each of our meetings. Evidence supporting each recommendation was gathered and posted on the website. That's been an ongoing process that we've been doing since the beginning of this. And then the final report was compiled and edited by the co-chairs, the ALO, and Matthew Lee. In order to keep the campus community informed of the follow-up report and its status, we reported to EPC, Academic Senate, and College Council. The opportunity to review the final draft of the follow-up report for accuracy and evidence was made available to the campus. Minor changes were recommended and incorporated. And finally, the approval process. On January 8th, we had the District Vice Chancellor of Institutional Effectiveness coordinate a meeting with a task force from the Board of Trustees, and all of them came here and met. I will say one of the things that they were most impressed with was the broad representation and participation. We had a table full of representatives. It was very nice to see. They commented over and over on that one. On February 26, the Board of Trustees Institutional Effectiveness Committee heard a presentation from the leadership and recommended approval to the board. On March 6, the Academic Senate and College Council approved the report. And then on March 12th, the Board of Trustees approved the final document. March 13th, it was mailed off. We finished it. We expect the visit to be sometime in April. We are aiming for the third week of April, so we're still waiting to get a final date.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that the first time I got to address the campus community around the area of accreditation was to share with you how the 3 division vice presidents were working much more closely together and much more cohesively for the good of the entire campus. And I can tell you that we have made great strides in the last year in making sure that that has happened. I think that the president is quite proud that his 3 vice presidents work closely together to maintain our institutional accreditation, but also for the overall effectiveness of the campus. As you know, the site team, or excuse me, the commission gave us an action letter that included 14 recommendations. We have made great strides in the last year. We were able to completely resolve half of those. So 7 of the recommendations are completely resolved. We have processes and plans in effect to make sure that the remaining 7 are completed by the spring of 2015 at the very latest. We must demonstrate to the commission that we have resolved all 14 recommendations within 2 years of their visit. And that will be in the spring of 2015. I'm not going to go over each of the recommendations for time's sake. Do know that all of this information, including the follow-up report, which I strongly encourage you to read, is on the website. Currently, it is behind the ASC page. So when you go to accreditation, then go to the Accreditation Steering Committee, it'll be linked there. We're going to work on getting it linked directly to accreditation so that it's more accessible to you. The more you know about what we've said in the follow-up report, the better we will look as an institution when the follow-up team comes to campus. So please take a look at what we've done in response to the recommendations, what the plans of attack are going to be, and be ready to work with all of your colleagues to implement these systems so that we are completely reaffirmed.
Alrighty. I just want to give you a quick update on how we're doing on the area of student learning, especially in the area regarding student learning outcomes, which is, I know, one of your favorite topics. So we have to add a little excitement to the day. I think in the back, this is very hard for you to read. It looks great when it's brighter, and but it's just a history of our progress, of how we're doing in the student learning outcome assessment stage of our progress. And I think we'll just go past this. We have 2 charts. Just go ahead. It's just, okay, the thing that I think will be most interesting to you is the summary of our SLO assessment progress 2010-2013. Now, we actually worked on assessments before that. We started in 2007, but 2010 we started using our online system. And so we're marking our progress from then for what's recorded, because unless we have evidence of the assessments, they don't count to the accreditors. And that's when we really started getting hard evidence posted. One thing I think you'll notice as you look at this, it goes up and down. And the reason, but the trend is definitely up. We were asked in accreditation recommendation 2 response to that to accelerate our outcome assessment. And so I hope this is sufficient to illustrate we have, in fact, accelerated our outcome assessment. I've given this to you also on the gold handout. And the advantage of this is that it has both the SLOs and the PLOs. And you can go to the next one, the PLOs, if you would, Madeline. The PLOs, if you compare the 2 together, which is on the front page of this gold handout, one thing you may notice is there's an inverse correlation. So as we do better with our SLO assessments, which was 2011, and also 2013. In spring 2013, fall 2011, we did much better on our SLO assessments. But what happened to our PLO assessments at that time? We look at fall 2011 and spring 2013, they went down. So it seems like there's inverse correlation. When we concentrate on one, we don't do as well on the other. But now, for both of them, you'll notice fall 2013, they both went to a much higher point. So we are accelerating them, but we got to keep going. We got to keep working on it. This just is the SLO assessments. We also have service area outcome assessments that we're doing, but this recommendation involved the student learning outcomes SLOs. So that's a quick summary of where we are. I also have some statistics on the back to kind of give you an idea of, for our program learning outcomes, for example, we have 95 programs. We've assessed, we have about a third of them that have been, had one PLO assessed, but only about 20% of them have, of the total have been assessed. So we got to keep going in that area. As you all know, we're planning an assessment retreat this spring. We had scheduled it for May 2nd, but I actually just found out this last Thursday at the DAS that there's a kind of command performance for the administrators on May 2nd, which is the date we had scheduled for our assessment retreat. So perhaps we'll have to do it on maybe the 9th, but it'll definitely be sometime early part of May. So I know you look forward to that, and thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, so let me just go to the next one. Oh, over here. Okay, so in addition to student learning outcomes, the college also looks at performance on student achievement outcomes, which are well-accepted measures of student attainment. And changes in federal and our accrediting agencies' guidelines have created the need for us as an institution to develop institution-set standards, which are defined by the ACCJC, which is our accrediting agency, as the level of performance set by the institution to meet educational quality and institutional effectiveness expectations. So rather than a target or goal we aspire to meet, these standards that we set represent the level below which we don't want to fall. So if we do fall below these standards that we've set, we'd be concerned and we'd want to look at reasons why we're falling below our institution set standards. In the fall, the college went through the process of setting performance standards for 6 student achievement outcomes, and I'll go through each one of those on the next slides. To do this, Council of Instruction members evaluated previous college performance on the student achievement outcomes for each of the past 5 years, and we looked at the 5-year trends, the 5-year minimum, 5-year maximum, 5-year average, as well as 95% of the 5-year average. And we looked at overall district performance over the 5 years where available on each of the measures to help us set reasonable and acceptable standards for our college. The suggested standards from Council of Instruction were reviewed and approved by the Educational Planning Committee and the Academic Senate, and then finally by the College Council and the President in December. Okay. So the first outcome measure that we're looking at is successful course completion rate, which is the percentage of students who received a successful grade in their courses. And the graph shows 5 years of historical data that were considered by the college when setting the standard. And the standard was set to be 64%, which is the black dashed line on the graph. So you can see that over the past 5 years, we've been performing above this standard, except in that first initial year. Okay, the next outcome measure is course retention rate, which is the percentage of students who remained in their courses after the no penalty drop date. So basically, these students just stayed in their course to the end. Again, this graph shows 5 years of historical data that were considered when setting the standard, and this standard was set to be 85%, again, the black dashed line on the graph. And also, as was the case with successful course completion rate, we have been performing above the standard except in that first year. The next outcome is persistence rate, which equals the percentage of students who completed a course in the fall and then came back and enrolled in a course the following fall. Again, this graph shows 5 years of historical data, and the standard was set to be 48%. So basically that's saying that we expect about half of the students who were here this fall to come back and take courses the following fall. And reasons they might not come back is that they completed what they were planning to do in this first year. Maybe they graduated with their AA or certificate, or their intent was just to take one or two classes, or maybe they're a high school student. So that's why we're saying 48%, that we expect about half to come back the next year. And we've been consistently performing just above this standard, and we've actually seen a 4% improvement in the last year in persistence. Okay, the next outcome is degree completion, which is basically just the number of degrees that are awarded each year. And this graph shows 5 years of degree data, and this standard was set to be that we will award at least 450 degrees each year as a college. And we've only been performing above this level for the past couple of years, but we anticipate continuing to remain at this higher level of degree awards in the future, which is why we set the standard to be higher than our previous performance. Okay, and then similarly, we have certificate completion, which is the number of state-approved certificates that are awarded each year. This graph shows 5 years of historical data for certificate awards, and the standard was set to be 214 certificates. As was true for degrees, we've only been performing above this level the last couple of years, but again, we hope to maintain this higher level, which is why we set the standard to be higher than our previous performance. Okay, and the sixth outcome that we're going to talk about today is transfer. And this is just the number of students who transferred to a CSU or a UC each year. And this graph shows 5 years of historical data for these transfer numbers, and we set the standard to be 205 transfers. For the most part, we've been reaching this level consistently, but do keep in mind that a lot of factors contribute to our transfer numbers, including how many students the transfer institutions are accepting. So we don't have great control over this measure, but there are definitely things we can do as a college to help keep our numbers up in terms of transfer. Finally, I'd just like to say that the college has a process in place by which to annually review our performance on each of these outcome measures in relation to the standards that we've set, and by which to revisit the standards themselves every year and see if any changes need to be made in the standards or the measures we're looking at. So we have those processes in place. Also, the measures will be reviewed annually in the context of our other college outcome measures because they've been incorporated into our strategic master plan as measures for the goals related to student success. And I know Danny will be talking about our strategic master plan in just a little bit. So that ends this portion.
Okay. I'm next. I didn't realize that. What I wanted to show you was sort of a holistic view of our integrated planning processes, and I wanted to capture it in a way that you could visualize it. Like my wife always says, she's a visual learner, not an auditory learner. So this might help us look at what we do here at Mission. In the spring, we have program review, and the EPC, as well as the Student Services Support Committee and the Administrative Services folks, have agreed to do program review in the spring. Those will be annual updates and then selected ones, 3-year comprehensives. So we're doing this because it used to be done in the fall, but we couldn't capture enough information that would be useful for planning. What happens in that program review is assessment and reevaluation, and we identify gaps. We identify gaps with your programs, your units, and your departments that you think need to be fixed, whether they're human resource gaps, curriculum gaps, service gaps, you identify them. Then you make some program design changes, and I've captured some of the language from ACCJC. We attended a meeting a week and a half ago where this was done as well. So you change what you're doing in your particular department or unit or program to try to address the gaps. And then you make resource allocation requests. That goes then into 2 planning processes. One is the Mission Learning Report. This is something new, but we're going to be publishing on an annual basis our outcomes, student learning outcomes, where we are with that, and you saw some of that from Pat. and also our student achievement outcomes, and anything else dealing with initiatives that we started, like Achieving the Dream, other initiatives that we started, if we start first year experience, all of those kinds of things will be in that annual report. The second thing is the resource allocation, then that goes to Budget and Planning Committee, which is part of shared governance, and they make resource allocation recommendations. Then in late spring and summer, the College Council reviews the mission statement, or rather, yes, reviews the mission statement. Now, one of the processes that occurs is not included in the spring is that we also decided to do an annual review, perhaps maybe a 2-year review, as we discuss it, of the mission statement. This is something that came out of a recommendation by the ACCJC, and we decided that we should do that in the spring. That way we can look at it in the summer and fall and prepare for the following year to put it in the catalog, if indeed it changes. So College Council will be doing that. We're initiating, and Mary Lou got the email out, we're initiating the shared governance committees to review the mission statement to see if they want to make any changes. And once the shared governance committees do that, there's 3, Budget and Planning, EPC, and Student Support Services Committee. Then that goes to a process. And also we update the strategic plan. We have a strategic plan that is aligned with the district plan. The district has a strategic plan. We have a strategic plan that aligns itself. And we have completed the revisions of that, and we're going to look at it again in the summer, late spring and summer. Then in the fall, you have academic affairs, administrative services, and student services implementation. So you're implementing the plans that you figured out in the spring through your program review. And you're implementing the changes that you thought would address the needs, the gaps that you found. And then you collect data and you will analyze if the implementation is working or not working. Some of it may be through surveys, and the Office of Institutional Effectiveness will work with all of us on how we're going to collect some of that information. But if you're admissions and records, you're going to collect data on whether or not students are getting served in areas that you think need to be stepped up. Customer service is something student services wants to step up on, so that has to be measured in some fashion. After you finish the fall, all of that data then it comes back to the spring for your program review. And the analysis of your outcomes, the results of your implementation are fed into the spring program review, and the cycle continues. So that's, in a nutshell, integrated planning and how all these different pieces fit. And it gives you an idea of institutional planning that incorporates all of the different activities in the planning process. We'll entertain questions once Danny is done. Danny's the last one, so it's up to you. And he's going to talk about strategic planning.
Thank you. That's our mission statement. As Dr. Perez mentioned, the mission statement was vetted through all the shared governance committees. It was a process where a very participatory process. When we're looking at the mission statement, I know sometimes we look at it, we want to save the world, but keep in mind when we're doing the mission statement as a community college, it's critical that we can do data-driven decisions against that mission statement and that we can have outcomes against that mission statement. So as we put this mission statement together, and as it goes through different iterations throughout the years, maybe changes a little or doesn't change, it's because we're looking, how can we break this down to show the Accreditation Commission that we are achieving our mission? And we'll go to our strategic master plan goals. Here we go. We have 6 goals that we began for fiscal year 2013 going out to 2018. The first one is to expand access to educational programs and services and prepare students for success. We know with the new funding model, with the 3SP, with the addition of sections, we are doing that. You know, we're with the Dean of Student Services, with the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness, we're looking at what class offerings, what's going to help our students succeed and continue on the path towards matriculation. Second, strengthening institutional effectiveness through a culture of evidence-based decision-making, planning, resource allocation, process assessment, and activities that promote professional development and collegiality. This one's real critical because it allows us to work together and make effective decisions. And I can tell you number 2 and number 4, maintain fiscal stability through effective planning and evaluation and encourage a greater focus on revenue enhancement. Number 2 and 4 were really critical this year. This was a critical fiscal year for all community colleges. But because administration, staff, and faculty were able to collaborate on the class schedule, for this year, we're going to be only one of the 9 LACCD community college that met its target growth and that is fiscally solvent. So we're the only one of 9. And that has to do with everybody in this audience that actively participated in that process directly or indirectly. And that is huge. Trust me, that is huge because none of the other 8 community colleges can say that. So keep adding students in classes. Improve quality of education programs and services so as to increase students accessing and attaining their educational goals. Once again, Student Services has put together a master plan, and they're going to be very active in doing that. Number 5, sustain user-friendly and innovative technology to meet the needs of students, faculty, and staff. One of the things that we did through this accreditation cycle and in the follow-up report is we put together an IT plan to repair and replenish equipment. The first priority when we're looking at IT is student accessibility and student success. So when this plan was vetted through the IT committee, all the other shared governance committees, we focused on, we got to be sure that our students are well equipped to succeed with technology. Second, faculty. You know, so the more equipment faculty has, the less disruption in their ability to deliver education. So we now have an adoptive plan on how to cycle technology on and off in order for student success. Number 6, increase community engagement and expand business, community, and civic partnerships. That's one thing that Dr. Perez is very actively working on. We have a lot of groups coming in this summer, YPI, other groups that are going to be actively participating, not only bringing in future students, but introducing them to our program. And we benefit and they benefit, and that's really critical, something that we're doing. I want to touch on number 4 because that one was near and dear to my heart. On the revenue enhancement, I really want to thank for everybody's cooperation as the filming is going on campus. I know sometimes it can be a little inconvenient, but we appreciate it. This is part of the revenue enhancement that allows us to do a lot of little things and to be fiscally solvent. So everything you guys do is critical. I always say procure the student store because funds from the student store directly go into helping us fund programs and offset losses. So everything you guys do here on campus, we are a family. We appreciate it very much. Those are our 6 goals. Number 7 goal is going to be the Lakers win another championship, but that's a little out of our league, but you know we can all hope for that. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Perez for Q&A.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, we all can pray about that. So we have been able to, what? Oh. Questions and answers. Okay, great. All right, we have an extra microphone. If you have any questions and answers, please feel free. And there's a lot of information. So any questions on this or anything else? Well, I do want to make a comment before the question, and that is all of this that you're looking at is from you because you did the work. You made this happen. And all we did is we wrote it up, and we captured what you're doing. So every day that you help that student, that you instruct, provide support, and make sure the landscape is beautiful, make sure that the campus is beautiful, everything you do is towards student learning and student achievement. So we're all part of that. So I think you should give yourself a hand. Let's do that. Okay, we have a question back here.
Yeah, I have a question for Sarah Masters as far as the strategic goals are. If we increase our student count, will those goals, the baseline for those goals also go up as a percentage of our students?
Right, so the student achievement, like degrees, certificates, transfer, as we get more students in the door, we hope we get more students out of the door too. So that'll be part of our annual review. If we're seeing that the standards are just really low for how we're actually performing, we'll actually increase the standards to say, we've reached a new level of enrollment, we need to increase our standards.
Yeah, should those be a percentage of enrollment as opposed to a fixed number?
That's a debate. The way they're asking it to be reported now is a fixed number. There are ways to do it with cohorts where you follow a group of students that come in, because our students take different amounts of time to complete. So it's hard to just say X percentage of students this year are going to get a degree or certificate or transfer, because it takes students more than a year. So then we have to decide, okay, are we going to go back a certain percentage of students from 2 years ago or from 3 years ago, 4 years ago? It takes the average community college student on average like 4 to 6 years to finish their goal. So that's one reason that's just a little easier to look at the numbers themselves, how many each year are transferring or getting degrees and certificates. But that's a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And while I have the mic, I would just like to say that I'd like to thank my staff for as hard as they work in keeping the campus up and running.
Yes, let's give them a hand. Absolutely. Other questions? Please, feel free. Thoughts? Any statements? Answers to any of this? Okay, let me kind of give you a quick overview. Yes, we have a question back here. Media Arts Building, good question. We are looking at now, we were hoping for spring of 2015, but it appears it's going to take a little bit longer than that. So we're shooting for fall of 2015. And no later than spring 2016. The issue with that building, yes, I know, it hurts. The issue with that building, as you know, was the contractor left and did some shoddy work. We had to go back in and fix it and get another company to do that, and the insurance would cover it. And it's taken quite a bit of wrangling and making sure that we get the right legal status to get that done. And so that's been part of the issue, because everything that the work that has to be fixed has to go to the Department of State Architects. So they parceled it out into 3 stages, I believe, Wally. And so we went, bottom floor had to be approved by DSA, second floor had to be approved, and third floor. So I think we're close to finishing second. We're getting to the third before they even start finishing that building. So we're working with fixing it first before we continue building, finishing the building. So that's where we are with that. Yes, Dorothy.
We increased the class size this semester. If we get a lot more students in, especially if we're going to get the adult ed, where are we going to put them? Do we have plans to put these people in rooms? Because, as you know, we're crowded.
Well, I think that we have to be, in my mind, strategic about where we're putting our students. We do have room. We just need to be more efficient about where we're putting our students. So I think that the Council of Instruction, along with the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Facilities, we need to come up with a plan. Now, you do know the old biology instructional administration building, those old labs. We're going to move forward with making them classrooms. And they're going to be pretty big classrooms. So we will be able to take more students in that fashion. As far as adult ed is concerned, it's a pilot for 2 years before we even talk about taking on adult education. So we have a couple of years to plan for that. The first 2 years, it will be a pilot, small group, and we'll see moving forward. I guess you're thinking, Dorothy, about the fact that the governor would like community colleges to take over adult education. So right now, that's not really moving forward until a pilot is completed in 2 years. So I think if we're more efficient in our planning, we can get the students in. Other questions? Dorothy, when is the classified day?
Thursday, April 3rd.
Okay, Thursday, April 3rd, all the classified have 2 hours to reflect and be appreciated and do their business. So thank you. Other questions? Other thoughts?
I'm sorry, I do.
Go ahead, Dorothy.
I do have one more.
Sure.
What are we doing with the property over on Hubbard?
Oh, okay. Originally, that property on Hubbard was to relocate the bungalows, and then we build the student services building. The student services building has been deferred because we need to ensure that we have the dollars for that building. So since that has taken place, we haven't moved the bungalows. It's still an empty lot, and we don't have any specific plans for it yet. We're waiting to see, if the student services building may go forward, if all works out. So I don't want to do anything with that property until we really know one way or the other. So we also know that the state of California is probably going to float another bond. And so if that other bond gets approved by the taxpayers, by the voters, we're going to go after funding to complete our student services building. So Joe, I'm sure you'll be happy about that, and people in student services. So that's where we are with that. So right now it's empty. Other questions? You got another one, Dorothy? Okay. Well, I think that you, as I said, all the hard work that you've been doing has been captured. We're going to continue in the spring to move forward. We have 7 recommendations we're still working on, as the Vice President Allen said, that are going to continue, some of which into 2015 in the spring. But I feel very confident that, we have the processes in place, the systems in place to get it done, and that's what we got to convince the ACCJC. So I think we're going to have a good visit, and we'll get through it and get approved, hopefully, get our accreditation, get off warning, which is the least of the sanctions, but that's something we're after, to get off warning. So we'll do our best to do that, and I appreciate you all and all the hard work you're doing. Any last minute thoughts? Yes.
To goal number 3, about helping students with the educational plans, will there be more counselors hired for that?
That's
Because as a student, I haven't been able to get help from that.
Very good question. As you know, there has been a mandate by the state of California that we provide students mandatory orientation, assessment, and also ed plans. And it's going to require student services in particular to work closely with their various offices, in particular counseling, to provide more ed plan support. So yes, the answer is we're looking at various ways. I'm waiting for counseling and for student services to come up with their ideas about how to do that. All the other 112 community colleges are in the same boat, and they're talking about various models to get there. I'm sorry?
By when?
By when?
Yeah.
Well, the plan for the Student Success Support Program has to go in October 17th, and we have to submit that plan to the state of California. So right now, we need to be gearing up, but the plan has to be in place for that the rest of fall and the spring. And it's phased in. Joe, do you want to try to tackle that, our VP of Student Services?
Okay, what we've done already is that we've already added some adjunct counselors. So we have more counselors than we had in the fall. We did have extra funding from our 3SP fund, which was formerly matriculation. We do have in plans right now to bring in 2 full-time counselors. I'd like to see like July 1, but we need to find out about from our budget if we will have the amount that was stated to us. So we intend to increase the number of counselors probably by the time the fall starts, by at least 3 equivalent full-time counselors. That would include 2 limited-term counselors and probably at least another 1 FTEF counselor in terms of adjunct. So we're really trying to beef that up and also to be more efficient with how we plan and make appointments for students. So I think when we start in the fall, you'll see a different turnover in terms of being able to have appointments and be more efficient with that. That help? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Other questions? Wow, we could have really talked more at you. I made everybody do 5 minutes. Let me ask a question. How are you all feeling about student learning outcomes? And you getting it? You understand it? That you all getting that? No? No, have no idea what it is? Okay, yes, Gina.
Our class sizes were increased this semester, and I'd like to know what the future holds regarding class size. Are you going to continue having larger classes? Will we go back to what we were?
I think that we're going to encourage you to try to get as many students as you can within your ceiling for the discipline. We are looking at, we're the most of the 9 colleges, we have 38 average per classroom. So we're the highest. I think the next one's 36. And that's why we're, as Danny put it, the only college that grew and it was within budget, without a deficit. Harbor grew tremendously, but they had class sizes of 15 and 17. So they spent more money than we did to grow. So we have to, it's a balancing act, and I would encourage faculty, if you feel appropriate, to try to get as many students as you can. But if, that has to be within limits. So I respect the academic discipline and how you move forward with that. So that's where we are. Yes, question here from a counselor.
Thank you. I would like to know, do you know when the Campus Center building will be available, as we have some plans for activities there?
What?
The Campus Center.
Oh, yeah. Wally, when will the campus center be available? I know it's going through refurbishing, renovation.
Should be by the time the board meets, which is mid-April.
Okay, mid-April. Very good. Very good. And what are they doing in there, Wally?
They're putting in new partitions.
Oh.
They have to raise some outlets and doing some other ADA upgrades.
ADA outlets and partitions. Okay. Very much needed. Very much needed. Did that, yes, Aleida, get you? Okay, answer your question. Other questions? Other thoughts? Yes, sir.
Well, I'm just curious about the standards, how the standards compare to any other colleges in the district.
Very good question. The question is, how do our institutional standards compare to other colleges? So, Sarah, if you want to tackle that, the cohort models and all that.
So each college, they're called institution set standards because each institution is supposed to set their own standards. So colleges all use different approaches to do that. We kind of used a conglomeration of all the different approaches by looking at our 5-year minimum, our 5-year average, 95% of our 5-year average, looking at the district as a whole. Some colleges just went with their minimum. They said, you know, we've always been meeting educational quality, so whatever our lowest point was, we'll say that's our standard. Other colleges took an average. Other colleges misinterpreted what was being asked for and set a goal, so they're not meeting their standards that they've set. So it's all different at all the different colleges. And I would say, too, it depends on your size, because like Wally's question about number of degrees and certificates and transfer, the more students you have at your college, you'd expect to set higher standards for those things, because you expect higher numbers of students coming in, you expect higher numbers coming out. That being said, probably success, retention, and persistence are probably similar across most colleges. Those are pretty standard, about in the 60s% for course success and in mid-80s for retention. So I would say those are pretty standard across the colleges, but can't say for sure. It all depends on the processes they used at each institution to set their standards.
You know, this is a part of the, there is a scorecard that the state chancellor puts out for every college. Mission is on the scorecard. And part of the, what we try to do is compare ourselves to comparable colleges. So, you know, other colleges that fit our profile and compare it that way. But yeah, it's going to be, we're really looking at ourselves and how can we do better. That's what we're really looking at. That's what the Accreditation Commission wants. We may not be at 90%, but wherever we're at, we want to improve. And so that's really what they want us to look at. Diana?
Hi, Dr. Perez. Regarding the triple SP, I know that there's a budget operational plan due to the district in May, and I'm just wondering if the triple SP committee has been approved by you and when they will be meeting to start
Yes,
the
it has been approved by me, and I expect you to be meeting as soon as possible. So Joe and I were going to meet today about getting some dates, but as soon as possible, you guys need to get together. So it's a big committee, but you need to move forward with the individuals and get them there. Any other questions? I saw another hand over here, I thought. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll finish up with just some news from the district. You all heard that Francisco Rodriguez is the new chancellor. He was the superintendent president of Miracosta, about 18,000 students in the San Diego area, La Jolla. Francisco was at Consumes, I think is the way you pronounce it, community college up north in the Yuba City area, and was a dean at Woodland and vice president of Woodland Community College. I happened to be one of the accreditation on that team that gave Woodland their initial accreditation years ago. He's really a solid fellow. He's very approachable and has a good deal of experience. He did turn around Miracosta. Miracosta had some financial issues that were pretty deep and difficult, and also had some accreditation issues, and he was able to turn that around. So I think we made a good choice. He starts July 1. The presidents will be meeting with him in about 2 or 3 weeks to get to know him a little bit. And one of the things he's happy about is that the presidents are pretty united about working with him, and they're the caliber of the presidents. So that's a good thing. The other is that we're pushing for legislation for the underprepared student. There is a governor proposal to add additional $100 million to community college districts and community colleges that serve underprepared students. Trying to get at this whole issue of 90% of our students can't take college freshman math, 85% can't take college freshman English, and we need to turn that around. So the governor's proposing to give us a bump financially, so we can provide the support needed to change that, whether it be remedial classes in the high school, which is another legislative initiative we're supporting to have college credit remedial courses in the high school. Right now, we cannot do that, but there is legislation to allow us to do that. So we're supporting that as well. If indeed we get that, then we're going to have additional dollars to work with our population. So those are two very interesting legislative initiatives that we're tracking, and LA is supporting those initiatives. So hopefully we can win on that and have those dollars so we can support our students. Any other comments? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming, and you got updated. All this is going to be on the website. We also filmed it, and we'll be able to spread the good news. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.